जय गुरु जी संगत जी। उस दिन शनिवार को जो हमने पढ़ा था, we read that how Swami ji met a highly educated Swami, was quite handsome, और उनको काफी वेदांतिक और योगा ट्रेडिशन के बारे में पता था, और उन्होंने स्वामी जी को श्री विद्या, दैट्स द हाईएस्ट ऑफ पाथ्स, उसके बारे में बताया. एंड देन वी लर्नड अबाउट द टू बुक्स, द वेव ऑफ ब्लिस एंड द वेव ऑफ प्यूरी. और इन दोनों किताबों को सौंदर्य लहरी भी कहा जाता है संस्कृत में. एंड देन उसके बाद हमने पढ़ा कि जैसे जो स्वामी ब्रह्मानंद, जो वन ऑफ द रेयरेस्ट साधुस हु हैड नॉलेज ऑफ श्री विद्या, और Swami Kirpatari, who was renowned scholar, was a disciple of Swami Brahmanand, and who requested him to accept the जो उनके डिसाइपल थे, उन्होंने रिक्वेस्ट किया था कि आप ये शंकराचार्य जी की ये जो भी उनका वो होता है, उसको आप to accept the prestige and dignity of शंकराचार्य जी, आप उसको प्लीज एक्सेप्ट करें. और फिर स्वामी ब्रह्मानंद जी ने एक श्री यंत्र भी बनाया था आउट ऑफ रूबीज. उसके बाद फिर हमने देखा कि स्वामी रामा जी को उनके मास्टर ने तांत्रिक टीचर के पास भेजा था, और वेयर ही लर्नड अबाउट द प्रिंसिपल्स of this vidya. And according to the science of tantra, there are male and female are two principles of the universe, and they are called Shiva and Shakti. फिर स्वामी जी डॉक्टर रनादे जो इलाहाबाद यूनिवर्सिटी के थे, उनके पास गए. उन्होंने स्वामी जी को बहुत कुछ सिखाया इंडियन फिलोसफी के बारे में, which is divided into 7 systems, and we learned about Vedanta, Yoga, Sankhya, Vaishika, Mimamsa, न्याय and Buddhism. और फिर हमने वो कुछ हर्ब्स के बारे में जाना जो हिमालयस में पाई जाती हैं. सोम के बारे में भी हमने उस हर्ब के बारे में जाना. और उसके बाद में जैसे स्वामी जी वो फेमस हेबोलॉजिस्ट से मिले थे और राइटर थे इन हर्ब्स के बारे में. उसके हमने ऐसी हर्ब्स के बारे में जाना जैसे एगैरिकस थे, स्ट्रामोनियम, और इस तरह के हमने हर्ब्स के बारे में जाना. और अष्टवर्ग, अ मिक्सचर ऑफ 8 हर्ब्स, जब उसको सोमरस के साथ मिलके स्वामी जी ने और सेबोलॉजिस्ट ने पिया था, तो स्वामी जी had a headache, whereas the other one just behaved in a very bizarre manner because he couldn't take it. He just threw off his clothes and he started dancing. तो स्वामी जी ने लास्ट में हमें यही बताया कि हाँ, ये जो साइकोलैटिक प्रेपरेशन होती है ना, इनका नुकसान ज्यादा है बेनिफिट से. तो उसके बाद जो हम आज पढ़ेंगे, it's like chapter 8, and that's known as Beyond the Great Religions. कहते हैं all the great religions of the world have come out of the one truth, and if we follow religion without practicing the truth, it's like the blind leading the blind. So those who belong to God love all. Love is the religion of the universe. तो यूनिवर्स का एक ही रिलीजन है, वो है प्यार. हम किसी भी रिलीजन को ऐसे ही फॉलो करते रहे, उसकी सच्चाई जाने बगैर, जस्ट ब्लाइंडली, सो इट्स नॉट अ गुड थिंग. और स्वामी जी कहते हैं compassionate one transcends the boundaries of religion and realizes the undivided absolute reality. जिसके अंदर दया भावना है ना, वो इन चीजों से ऊपर जाके और एक ही एब्सोल्यूट जो रियलिटी है ईश्वर की, उसी को देखता है. एंड नाउ वी गोना स्टार्ट अ क्रिश्चियन सेज ऑफ द हिमालयाज. स्वामी जी कहते हैं there once lived a sage in our monastery who was very knowledgeable about Christ. So we are going to learn about the sage, who had great knowledge about Christ. कहते उनका नाम क्या था? His name was साधु सुंदर सिंह. उनको साधु सुंदर सिंह के नाम से पुकारा जाता था. कहते when he visited Madras, tens of thousands of people would come to hear him speak on the beach. In fact, people used to fly all the way from Europe just to hear him. तो उनकी प्रसिद्धि इतनी ज्यादा थी, बहुत बहुत संख्या में लोग आते थे, यूरोप से भी लोग उनको सुनने आते थे. कहते he was born in Amritsar, Punjab, and was a Sikh by birth. वो अमृतसर में, पंजाब के अंदर अमृतसर में उनका जन्म हुआ था और उनका रिलीजन सिख था. he was sick by birth. कहते when he was still young, he had a vision which returned night after night. उनको एक vision आता रहा बार बार बार. He did not understand whether it was a dream, something guiding him, or something harmful. He saw someone who was asking him to get up and go toward the Himalayas. तो जो उनको vision आता रहा ना, उनमें कोई उनको guidance देता रहा, कोई guide करता रहा कि नहीं, तुम्हारा रास्ता कुछ और है, तुम हिमालयस की तरफ जाओ. He tried to avoid going to sleep, but eventually he would become tired and close his eyes. कहते वो क्योंकि उनको वो विजन और जो भी उनको वो गाइडेंस नींद में बार बार आती थी, तो उनको लगा कि इट्स बेटर टू अवॉइड स्लीप. Maybe he was feeling uncomfortable or whatever, but eventually जब वो थक जाते थे फिर उनको आंखें बंद ही करनी पड़ती थी. Then he would see the vision and would hear a voice saying, "Are you prepared to listen to me? I'm your savior. There is no other way for you." तो उस voice ने उनको कहा कि क्या तुम तैयार हो मुझे सिर्फ सुनने के लिए? I'm your savior. और कोई रास्ता नहीं है तुम्हारे पास. He didn't know who it was that was coming to him. So he asked some people for advice. One person said it was Christ, another said it was Krishna, and a third said it was Buddha. But when he saw a picture of Christ, he said, "Here is the master who appears to me in my dream and awakens me." तो जब उनको पता लगा ये पता नहीं मेरे साथ क्या हो रहा है, ये कहाँ से आवाज आ रही है, तो जब उन्होंने लोगों को बताया अपने ड्रीम के बारे में, एंड पीपल हैड देयर ओन असम्पशंस. कोई कहता नहीं ये क्राइस्ट है, कोई कहता है कृष्णा है, कोई कहता है बुद्धा है. पर फाइनली जब इन्होंने साधु सुंदर सिंह जी ने जब ये तस्वीर देखी क्राइस्ट की, तो उन्होंने बोला यही तो है जो मेरे ड्रीम में आते हैं और मुझे अवेकन करते हैं. Again and again Christ would appear in his dreams and say, "My son, why are you delaying?" Finally, one day he left his home without informing anyone and went to the Himalayas. So eventually, जो उनको अंदर से awakening आई, तो उन्होंने कहा कि नहीं, अब तो मुझे जाना ही पड़ेगा. So he went to Himalayas, where he remained for a long time. He lived in our cave monastery several years. तो स्वामी रामा जी के साथ वो काफी टाइम रहे केव के अंदर. कहते he was the person sorry he was the person who introduced the Christian Bible to me. तो उन्होंने ही बाइबल के बारे में स्वामी जी को बताया. He also taught me the comparative study of the Bhagavad Gita and the Bible. तो पूरा comparative study comparison करके उन्होंने बताया भगवद गीता का और बाइबल का स्वामी रामा जी को. He said the message that was given in the morning was the message of Krishna. The message that was given in the afternoon was the message of Buddha. And the message that was given in the evening was the message of Christ. तो उनको जो भी मैसेज मिलते थे, कहते मॉर्निंग में मुझे कृष्ण जी का मिलता था, दोपहर को बुद्धा जी का, और शाम को क्राइस्ट का. वो कहते देयर इज नो डिफरेंस. अब कहते ये क्या है? कहते क्राइस्ट इज द कंपैशनेट, दयालु है, दयावान है. बुद्धा द इनलाइटेंड, बिल्कुल जागृति वाले. एंड कृष्णा द परफेक्ट, गेव देयर मैसेजेस अकॉर्डिंग टू द टाइम्स एंड द नीड्स ऑफ द मैसेज हु वर प्रिपेयर्ड टू फॉलो देम. तो कहते ये सब मैसेज वो देते रहे जो उस टाइम के दौरान बिल्कुल सही लगी और जो भी लोग उसको फॉलो करने के लिए तैयार थे. कहते these great ones were representatives of one absolute reality who assumes various forms and descends to guide humanity whenever he is needed. तो ये बिल्कुल सही बात है, ये बिल्कुल सही है कि जब भी ह्यूमैनिटी को जरूरत पड़ती है तो एक लाइट को डिसेंड करना ही पड़ता है, आना ही पड़ता है कोई ना कोई फॉर्म लेके. He is needed, humanity whenever he is needed. The sages have a tradition of reverence for all the great religions of the world. Sadhu Sundar Singh was a very loving, kind, and highly evolved soul. I used to revere him and call him one of my teachers. Once he gave a beautiful comparison of Buddhism and Christianity. तो वो कंपैरिजन के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं जो बुद्धिज्म क्रिश्चियनिटी का उनको बताने जो उनको बताते हैं. वो कहते हैं he said Christianity is child of Judaism exactly like Buddhism is a child of Hinduism. कहते these two great religions of the world varied, evolved, and assumed innumerable forms throughout the many centuries of the gradual growth. कहते there are a few important characteristics which are commonly seen in these two great and noble religions. तो इसमें आगे हिंदुज्म और क्रिश्चियनिटी के बारे में बता रहे हैं कंपेयर करके. कहते they both rejected the sense of flesh which springs from the lower levels of human hearts and minds. Both these religions believe that this sense is the root of evil. The doctrine of sin and selfishness leads one toward pessimism. They place a positive emphasis upon suffering and compassion for the whole of humanity. Both these religions fundamentally embrace the ideal of love to the extreme of accepting death in the service of others and loving others as themselves. तो दोनों की जो fundamental teaching है दोनों की ही same है. कहते हैं they both consider selfless love essential in man and seek to cultivate in their followers. The love of Buddhism has a wider extension than that of Christianity. Christianity limits this interest to humanity, while Buddhism extends its tenderness to every form of sentient animal life. फिर कहते Christianity analyzes, इसमें जो अभी हमने पढ़ा वो कहते हैं Buddhism की it has a wider teaching, it has a wider extension than that of Christianity. Because Christianity limits this interest of humanity, while Buddhism extends its tenderness to every form of sentient animal life. Christianity analyzes life with the help of theology and stops at the barrier of faith, while Buddhism rationalizes life and stops at nirvana. फिर कहते हैं Buddhist asceticism teaches peace and Christian asceticism teaches joy, but the understanding of both religions come to the point of peace and joy, which the world can neither give nor take away. तो जैसा भी है आखिर में इनका जो भी है एक ही चीज से है कि point of peace and joy, which the world really, really needs. फिर कहते हैं Buddhism, like Christianity, emphasizes the will, but in the cultivation of moral life, they both lay stress upon discipline, training, and habitat formation. And the broader aspects of teaching, these two religions are not much divided. कहते हैं a follower of Buddha is very intently aware of his thought, word and action. जो बुद्धा को फॉलो करते हैं वो बहुत अवेयर होते हैं इन तीनों चीजों से. हमने बार-बार भी इन चीजों के बारे में पढ़ा है. Thought, word and action. And history reveals that those who lived with Jesus were also totally dedicated to a larger self rather than to their petty selves. Both Christianity and Buddhism believe in teaching individuals to seek their own moral perfection. Buddhism believes in the Four Noble Truths, which recognize that the great source of sorrow is rooted in desire. Christianity has something of the typical Western willingness to take chance and make use of it. Buddhists choose as their supreme symbol an ideal, the figure of a sage, seated in a deep meditation and contemplation, perfect calm. Christianity uses a symbol of a young man crucified on a cross. तो बुद्धिज्म का जो सिंबल क्या है एक सेज जो समाधि में बैठे हैं परफेक्ट सेरेनिटी और calmness के साथ. और क्रिश्चियनिटी क्रूसिफिकेशन यूज करते हैं ऑन अ क्रॉस जो जीसस क्राइस्ट की है. कहते which demonstrates supreme suffering being overcome by love. कहते the characteristics of both Buddha and Christ are similar yet diverse. Jesus was the intense lover of truth, Buddha the calm and compassionate sage. In the metaphysical attitudes of both religions, there is a contrast on the question of ethics. Christianity is theistic, while Buddhism is apparently agnostic. This contrast clarifies the followers of both religions are mistaken when they assert that their own religion contains all the values of both, forgetting the truth that both have a particular genius and have made a contribution in building humanity. देखो दोनों का contribution तो same ही है ना. कहते Christians like Vaishnavites believe in dualism, Buddhists believe in nirvana, exactly as the Veda also say. Nirvana is a Sanskrit word already mentioned in the Vedas. Emancipation or nirvana is the modified word of liberation, which the sages believe in. The path of the sages is most ancient. It includes the teachings of both Christianity and Buddhism. We are not discussing Hinduism or the Hindu religion here. For the Hindu religion believes that the path of avatars or the incarnate ones. Okay, कहते हैं आपको पता है ये जो हिंदू रिलीजन क्या है, हम उसमें बिलीव करते हैं जितने भी अवतार हुए हैं, जितने भी वो धरती पर आते हैं, कहते हैं but the path of the sages is supreme. They are the founders of the most ancient religion of the Vedas. Is there any religion in the world which the Vedas do not contain in all their moral ethics, philosophy, and man's relationship with the universe? The Vedas, which are the most ancient records in the library of man today, encompass all the principles of Buddhism and Christianity. आगे वो बोलते हैं, the latter part of the Vedas are called Upanishads. These Upanishads truly deliver the message of the sages and have various interpretations. These teachings are timeless, universal, and meant for all. No one particular person founded the Vedas. Many sages in the highest state of contemplation and meditation realized these profound truths. कहते आप ये नहीं कह सकते कि एक इंसान ने वेदास को बनाया था. ये तो जब sages अपने deep meditation में बैठते थे ना, तो जो भी Almighty से उनको एक इंस्पिरेशन मिलती थी, उसमें से वो profound truths आए हैं बाहर. कहते from this source of knowledge there arose 7 different fountains which gradually grew and became streams. These streams of external knowledge are universal. The custodians of the knowledge of the Vedas were the Aryans. But the question is, who follow the Vedas? In the Vedas, numerous paths have been explained. Those who are not able to follow the path of renunciation should try to understand that it is karma that binds the doer, and there is no way to escape from the law of karma. Karma has twin laws of cause and effect. तो कर्म का जो लॉ है, कर्मा का लॉ है, वो तो है ही है, कॉज और इफेक्ट से है, एक्शन रिएक्शन. कहते they are inseparable. Without profound devotion and love, karma cannot become a means of liberation. Karma creates bondage for human beings by creating obstacles in the path of self-realization. The philosophy of reincarnation is inseparable from philosophy of karma. They are one and the same. तो जो इनकारनेशन की फिलॉसफी है और फिलॉसफी ऑफ कर्मा कहते सब है, कर्मों का ही तो भुगतान करने के लिए इंसान बार बार आता है ना नीचे. कहते the path of the sages is a meditative and contemplative path. It is ascetic and yet fulfills the need of man in the world. It provides practical lessons for leading a spiritual life and firmly maintains the conviction that by doing one's own duty skillfully and selflessly, one can realize the ultimate reality here and now. तो अपनी कोई भी जो कर्म है, अगर आप उनको बिल्कुल अच्छे से करेंगे, skillfully, selflessly करेंगे, तो definitely one can realize the ultimate reality here and now. As Christianity talks about the kingdom of God within, and Buddhism speaks of nirvana, the path of the sages refer to the state of self-realization. In the path of the sages, one realizes the absolute undivided reality through knowledge of the self alone. Unlike Christianity and Buddhism, the path of sages does not have any particular symbol as an ideal of worship. ये जो जैसे क्रिश्चियनिटी का हमने देखा क्रॉस है, बुद्धिज्म का वो जो समाधि में बैठे होते हैं, कहते जो ये जो सेजेस का पाथ है ना, कोई इनका पर्टिकुलर सिंबल नहीं होता है. इनका मेन मकसद होता है सेल्फ रियलाइजेशन. इनका कोई भी सिंबल ऐसा नहीं है. कहते फ्रॉम मेयर सेल्फ टू द रियल सेल्फ एंड देन टू द सेल्फ ऑफ ऑल द पाथ ऑफ द सेजेस व्हिच इंक्लूड्स ऑल एंड एक्सक्लूड्स नन. फिर कहते हैं साधु सुंदर सिंह जो जिसके बारे में बताया जा रहा है, कि साधु सुंदर सिंह's powerful speech had a profound effect on the hearts of others. He used to walk in Christ consciousness all the time. कहते एक दिन मैंने पूछा स्वामी रामा जी, कहते one day I asked him, have you seen God? He said, you insult me by asking this. I see God all the time. Do you think I have seen God only once, twice or thrice? No, I am with my Lord all the time. कहते तुम क्या बात कर रहे हो, क्या कि मैंने उनको एक बारी, दो बारी, तीन बारी? मैं तो हर टाइम उनके साथ होता हूँ, वो हमेशा ही मेरे साथ होते हैं। कहते when I cannot be with him, then he is with me. जब मैं उनके साथ नहीं होता तो वो मेरे साथ होते हैं। कहते I said kindly explain. तो स्वामी जी कह रहे okay, throw light on this matter and elucidate. तो वो कहते हैं he explained it beautifully. He said as long as you remain conscious, be with God. जब तक तुम कॉन्शियस हो, तुम्हारी कॉन्शियसनेस है, ठीक है, ईश्वर के साथ रहो consciously by remembering him. You're doing your own conscious effort. कहते when your conscious mind starts fading as you fall asleep, surrender yourself. कहते जब तक तुम्हारी जागृति है, कॉन्शियस हो, तब तक तुम तो कॉन्शियसली ईश्वर को याद करो ना। और जब तुम्हारा कॉन्शियस माइंड फेड होता है, तुम नींद में चले जाते हो, तो अपने आप को पूरा सरेंडर कर दो, समर्पण कर दो पूरा। कहते the last thought before you go to bed should be, कहते जो आखिरी थॉट सोने से पहले क्या होना चाहिए? Oh Lord, be with me. I am thine and thou art mine. The whole night the Lord will remain with you. You can always remain together. So it's really, really beautiful, beautiful thought before sleeping, oh Lord. Oh Lord, oh God, oh Guruji, be with me. I'm thine and thou art mine. The whole night that Lord will remain with you. You can always remain together. One day, this great sage vanished in the high Himalayas. Nobody knew where he went. I tried many times to trace him, but always failed. He helped me to realize that it is possible to live in God consciousness constantly. There still exist such unknown sages. Blessed are those who live in Christ consciousness all the time. So what is Christ consciousness? I would say it's God's consciousness, आप चलते फिरते उठते बैठते जैसे भी कुछ भी करते हो, अगर ईश्वर को साथ लेके चलते हो ना, आपको कभी भी ये नहीं लगेगा कि मैं ईश्वर से अलग हूँ, because you make your God, you make your Guruji portable and you can just carry him everywhere, where you go and what you do. So that was beautifully described by Sadhu Sundar Singh ji, जो सिख रिलीजन से थे, पर उनको किस तरह से जीसस उनके साथ रहे और उनको जीसस ने जैसे विजन भी आते रहे कि नो डोंट स्टॉप एंड यू व्हेन विल यू गो टू हिमालयास, और उनके जीवन का उनको अपना मकसद मिल गया। ओके, सो नेक्स्ट इज नेक्स्ट चैप्टर इज माय मीटिंग विद जेसुइट साधु। अब स्वामी जी कहते हैं व्हेन आई वाज शंकराचार्य, जब मैं शंकराचार्य था, I happened to meet a Jesuit sadhu. A sadhu is he who is in the service of Lord. Sometimes sadhus and swamis wear white robes or cunning sacks, but the saffron garb is given to them when they are initiated in the path of renunciation. कहते होता है ना, कई बारी साधु जो भी होते हैं सफेद चोले डालते हैं, और जब उनको वो केसरी रंग का गार्ब दिया जाता है ना, उसका कोई मतलब होता है। कहते the saffron garb stands for the color of fire. Only one who has burnt all worldly desires into the fire of knowledge is permitted to wear it. तो सेफ्रन, ये जो चोला या गार्ब पहनते हैं, कहते ये है जिसने अपनी सारी संसारिक इच्छाएं अग्नि में जला दी हों, तो फिर they are permitted to wear it. कहते some of the advanced monks ignore wearing such garb and do not observe these formalities. हाँ, जो बहुत पहुंचे वो कहते हैं हमें कोई फॉर्मेलिटी करने की जरूरत नहीं है, जरूरी नहीं है कि हम इसको पहन के ही बताएंगे कि हम किस रास्ते पर हैं, या फिर हम मतलब हमने कौन सी संसारिक इच्छा छोड़ी हैं। कहते some of the advanced monks ignore wearing such garb and do not observe these formalities. They wear white gowns, wrap blankets around themselves, or use cunning sacks. For them, the use of particular garb is immaterial. So that's completely true. कि कुछ भी ये नहीं है कि उनको स्पेसिफिक चोला पहन के ही बताना है, कहते immaterial है उनके लिए। There are 10 orders of swamis and several of sadhus. Out of the 10 orders of swamis, 4 of them are exclusively for Brahmins, because of the Brahmins practice and learn spiritual books from the early childhood. The environment in which they are brought up is spiritual. They study the scriptures of wisdom and thus can impart of knowledge properly. But the other 6 orders are given to other classes. This Jesuit sadhu was wearing saffron garb and a cross around his neck. This made me curious. तो उसके चोले को देख के और साथ में जो क्रॉस पहना हुआ है उसको देख के स्वामी जी, he got inquisitive and he had this curiosity. He was only the third Christian sadhu that I had met, and we started discussing the practical aspect of Christianity. This Jesuit was an educated monk who knew Sanskrit, English, and most of the South Indian languages. He lived exactly like the Hindu Swamis live. There seems to be a difference in Indian and Western Christianity. Indian Christians practice meditation and give philosophical expositions of the Bible exactly as Swamis explain the Upanishads and the various commentaries. तो वो बता रहे हैं कि जो हिंदू स्वामीज है ना उनका फर्क होता है क्रिश्चियन साधु से. वो जो इंडियन क्रिश्चियंस होते हैं ना ये अपना they practice meditation and give philosophical expositions. और उसके बाद कहते हैं, he said that Christianity could be revived by teaching its practicality. In the West, practicality in Christianity is not understood. कहते हैं जो West में है ना वो जो Christianity के मतलब properly it's not understood. And why? Now I was going to explain that. He firmly believed that Christ had lived in the Himalayas, although it did not matter to me whether he had lived there or not. The Jesuit Swami was a very humble man and talked to me about walking with the Christ. I asked him, how can you walk with someone who lived 2,000 years ago? He laughed and said, what ignorance. Christ is a state of perfection. तो जब उन्होंने बोला ना कि I've been walking with Christ, तो स्वामी जी was like, he was startled. He said कि ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है जो 2000 साल पहले जी हूँ वो आपके साथ अब कैसे चल सकते हैं. तो वो हंसे, वो कहते हैं no, what ignorance. Christ is a state of perfection, a state of oneness, and a state of truth. Truth is everlasting reality and is not subject to death. I live with Christ consciousness, follow his footsteps. I said, where are those footprints? And he again laughed and said, anywhere I go to, at any direction I move, I find him guiding me. They are everywhere, but you will have to see with the eye of your faith. Do you have that? I admired his love for Christ consciousness and bade goodbye for him. तो बिल्कुल है कि जरूरी नहीं है कि वो शरीर लेके उनके साथ चले. तो जो Christ consciousness, God consciousness, उसकी fire उनके साथ मतलब उनकी that fire would always flicker in his heart. वो कहते मैं जहाँ चलता हूँ मेरे साथ होते हैं, कोई footprints की जरूरत नहीं है. मैं जिस डायरेक्शन में जाता हूँ मेरे साथ होते हैं क्योंकि वो मुझे गाइड करते रहते हैं. वो हर कहीं है, पर तुम्हें जो फेथ की आंख है ना अंदर की उससे देखना पड़ेगा. So Swamiji really loved his admiration for Christ consciousness. उसके बाद हमारा next chapter है Jesus in the Himalayas. Swamiji कहते हैं, after renouncing the seat of Shankaracharya, I went to my master and stayed with him for a few days. From there, I decided to go on a pilgrimage to Amarnath, the highest shrine of Kashmir. So Swami ji ne socha ki main Amarnath ki तीर्थ यात्रा करूं जो बहुत, it's highest shrine of Kashmir. कहते Amarnath is a cave which is covered by a snow all year round. The dripping water icicle looks like a Shivalinga, a symbol adored by Hindus, exactly as a cross is by Christian or the Star of David is by Jews. Okay, फिर वो कहते हैं, the story of a pair of white pigeons is very famous in this area. It is said that a pair of white pigeons come on the day of pilgrimage. ये तो हम सबको ही पता है कि अमरनाथ यात्रा में जो दो कबूतर होते हैं उनकी क्या मान्यता है और क्या महानता है. कहते जैसे हिंदूज वो शिवलिंग अमरनाथ पे उनको इतना पूजा करते हैं, मानते हैं, और मतलब ऐसे कंपैरिजन दिया है जो क्रिश्चियंस के लिए क्रॉस है और स्टार ऑफ डेविड ज्यूस के लिए है. कहते a Kashmiri Pandit who was a learned man was my guide on this journey. He started telling me a story about Jesus Christ, claiming that Jesus had lived in Kashmir practicing meditation. तो एक कश्मीरी पंडित मिलते हैं स्वामी जी को जो बताते हैं कि उन्होंने क्लेम किया कि जीसस जी ने कश्मीर में मेडिटेशन और अपनी तपस्या की थी. कहते the Pandit referred to a manuscript written in the Tibetan language that is preserved in a monastery situated at the height of 14,000 feet in the Himalayas. It was later translated by a Russian writer and then into English and published as the Unknown Life of Jesus Christ. तो उस पंडित जी ने एक मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट दिखाया ना जो टिबेटन ओरिजिनल लैंग्वेज में था, जिसकी ट्रांसलेशन एक रशियन राइटर ने की थी, जिसमें ये लिखा था कि हाँ, जीसस क्राइस्ट जी की वो लाइफ जो लोगों को नहीं पता है. कहते इन दिस पार्ट ऑफ द हिमालयाज मेनी पीपल बिलीव दिस स्टोरी एंड यू डे नॉट डिसएग्री विद इट. देयर इज अ नियरबाय माउंट व्हिच इज फेमस बिकॉज जीसस लिव्ड practicing meditation there. My guide gave me 3 reasons to support this statement. First, the garb which Jesus wore was a traditional Kashmiri garb. Second, his hairstyle was also Kashmiri. And third, the miracles that he performed are well-known yogic miracles. तो कहते जो भी जीसस जिस तरह का गार्ड पहनते थे बिल्कुल कश्मीरी स्टाइल का लंबा सा होता था, और उनके मिरेकल्स भी योगिक मिरेकल्स हैं, और उनका हेयर स्टाइल भी कश्मीरी लोगों से मिलता है. कहते द पंडित claimed that Jesus Christ left Asia Minor for the unknown period of his life when he was 13 years of age, and that he lived in the valleys of Kashmir until he was 30. तो उन्होंने बताया जीसस क्राइस्ट जी वहां पर जब तक 30 साल के नहीं हुए तब तक वहां रहे थे वो. एंड आई डिड नॉट नो वेदर टू बिलीव हिम. तो स्वामी जी कहते मुझे नहीं पता लगा मैं उसकी बातें सुन के उस पर विश्वास करूं कि ना करूं, बट आई सर्टेनली डिडंट वांट टू डिसमिस दिस आइडिया. कहते हाँ, पर मैं इसको आइडिया को डिसमिस भी नहीं कर पाया. कहते हिज लव फॉर जीसस क्राइस्ट वाज इमेंस. आई डिडंट वांट टू आर्ग्यू विद हिम. On our way to Amarnath, he took me to an ashram which was 7 miles away in the forest of Gulmarg. Gulmarg is one of the places of interest often visited by foreigners. A Swami lived there who was a scholar of Kashmir Shaivism and who practiced meditation most of the time. Kashmir Shaivism has many scriptures still untranslated and unexplained. So much is left unsaid in these great scriptures that they are only understood by those fortunate ones who are on the path and have already understood something of it. Yet these scriptures can never be understood without a highly competent and accomplished teacher. तो जो scripture के बारे में बात हो रही है, कहते कोई जब तक कोई highly accomplished teacher ना हो वो ही समझ सकता है, उनके अलावा और कोई नहीं समझ सकता. This philosophy views the spirit, mind, body, and all levels of reality in the entire universe as a manifestation of the principle termed spanda, spontaneous vibration. The subject matter of these scriptures is Shaktipata, an awakening, the latent force buried in human beings. This Swami informed me of a roving adept who visited Amarnath cave shrine every summer, but no one knew whether that adept lived permanently. People coming from Ladakh often saw him treading the mountain paths all alone. My interest was not only to visit the cave shrine, but to meet this roving adept of the Himalayas. इस स्वामी ने उस एक और स्वामी जी के बारे में बताया ना, जो अमरनाथ यात्रा पे आते थे, हर गर्मियों में आते थे, पर किसी को नहीं पता था वो कहाँ रहते थे, और जो लद्दाख से लोग आते थे ना, उन्होंने उनको जरूर देखा हुआ है वहां पर. तो स्वामी जी कहते हैं मेरा इंटरेस्ट सिर्फ ये नहीं था मैं श्राइन को देखूं, पर मेरा ये भी था कि मैं उस अडेप्ट को जरूर मिलूं जो एक जगह से दूसरी जगह जाते रहते थे. Of all those I have met in my life, 3 were very impressive and left deep imprints in the bed of my memory. That adept was one of them. I stayed with him for 7 days. तो स्वामी जी को मौका मिल गया उनके साथ मिलने को, और 7 दिन रहे भी. just 50 yards away from the shrine, he visited this cave shrine practically every year. He was about 20 years of age, was very handsome, and the luster of his cheeks was like that of cherries. He was a brahmachari who wore only a loincloth and possessed nothing. He was so acclimated to higher altitudes that with the help of yoga practices, he could travel barefoot and live at elevations of 10,000 to 12,000 feet. तो ये देखिए जो 20 साल की उम्र के वो स्वामी थे, कहते वो इतना ज्यादा अपनी योगा प्रैक्टिसेस करके इतने अपनी बॉडी को ऐसा बना लिया था, एक तो नंगे पांव चलते थे, और उसके अलावा इतनी ऊपर 10,000 to 12,000 फीट तक मतलब वहां पर वो इतने हाई ऑल्टीट्यूड्स में रहते थे. कहते he was insensitive to cold. Living with him was an enlightening experience to me. He was perfect and full of yoga wisdom and serenity. People call this young adept Bal Bhagwan, child God incarnate, because 20 साल की उम्र में अगर इतनी उन्होंने ऐसी शक्तियां भी प्राप्त कर ली थी. और कहते but he always kept himself above such praises and constantly traveled in the Himalayan mountains. He already knew my master and had lived in our cave monastery. He asked about several students who were then practicing meditation with my master. He spoke briefly in gentle sentences, but I could feel that he was not pleased when my guide started bowing, touching his feet, and running around in emotional devotion. This great adept became an example for me. क्योंकि उनमें जिस adept की बात करें बहुत बहुत humbleness रही होगी और बहुत gently वो बात करते थे और बहुत politely बोलते थे. कहते this great adept became an example for me. So Swami ji कहते I had never before seen a man who could still sit still without blinking his eyelids for 8 to 10 hours. स्वामी जी कहते अभी तक तो मैंने ऐसा इंसान नहीं देखा था जो 8 से 10 घंटे अपनी आईलिड को ब्लिंक करे बगैर बैठा हो. कहते but this adept was very very unusual. He levitated 2.5 feet during this meditation. तो इतनी deep meditation में कहते 2.5 फीट तक ऊपर लेविटेट हो जाते थे, उठ जाते थे. बॉडी जब इतनी हल्की हो जाती है तो ऊपर जैसे उठती है, लेविटेट हो जाती है. कहते we measured this with a string which was later measured by a foot rule. तो स्वामी जी कहते हमने तो उसको measure भी किया string से और एक foot rule से. कहते I would like to make it clear though, as I've already told you, that I don't consider levitation to be a spiritual practice. स्वामी जी कहते पर मैं इस जो भी कोई levitation भी करते हैं मैं उसको spiritual practice का spiritual practice नहीं मानता. कहते it is an advanced practice of pranayam with application of bandhas locks. कहते ये जब बहुत deep practice हो जाती है ना, advanced practice हो जाती है प्राणायाम की और तब ये होने लगता है. With application of bandhas locks. One who knows about the relationship between mass and weight understands that it's possible to levitate, but only after long practice. But this was not what I was seeking. Swami ji कहते मैं ये चीजें नहीं सीख कर रहा था. I directly wanted to have an experience with this adept. I asked him a question about the highest state of enlightenment, and muttering a mantra from the Upanishads, he answered, when the senses are well controlled and withdrawn from contact with the objects of the world, then sense perceptions no longer create images in the mind. तो सदैव स्वामी जी ने बताया, कहते जब senses जो भी है ना बहुत कंट्रोल पे आ जाती है और कोई उनका डायरेक्ट कांटेक्ट नहीं रहता ना ऑब्जेक्ट्स ऑफ वर्ल्ड से, फिर वो कोई भी मतलब जो अंदर का माइंड है ऐसी चीजों को परसीव नहीं कर पाता. कहते द माइंड इज देन ट्रेन्ड इन वन पॉइंटेडनेस. When the mind no longer recalls thought patterns from the unconscious, a balanced state of mind leads to higher states of consciousness. A perfect state of serenity established in sattva is the highest state of enlightenment. The practice of meditation and non-attachment are the two keynotes. तो जिस भी अवस्था की बात कर रहे हैं उसका keynote तो यही है ना, deep meditation और non-attachment. कहते a very firm conviction is essential for establishing a definite philosophy of life. Intellect intervenes and blind emotion misguides. Okay. कहते though both are great powers, they should be known first, analyzed, and then directed towards the source of intuition. Intuition is the only source of true knowledge. All this, whatever you see in the world, is unreal because of its constantly changing nature. ये दुनिया में जो कुछ आप देख रहे हो ना सब ऐसे ही है. It's unreal क्योंकि ये तो बदलता ही जाएगा. इसकी nature ऐसी है कि the reality is hidden beneath all these changes. पर जो एक reality है ना वो इन changes से भी ऊपर हटके है. He instructed me to march fearlessly on the path that I was treading. After 7 days of satsang, the guide and I left this great sage. I returned to Srinagar and then went on to my abode in the Himalayas to enjoy the autumn. तो स्वामी जी को 7 दिन ऐसे बहुत बहुत ये जो 20 साल की उम्र के स्वामी जी थे उनके साथ रहने का मौका मिला और जो भी उन्होंने स्वामी जी को सिखाया वो सीखा और उन्होंने स्वामी जी को ये भी किया कि हाँ ये जो रास्ता है इस पे तुमने fearlessly चलना है. उसके बाद next chapter is a vision of Christ. स्वामी जी कहते हैं, in 1947, after the declaration of independence in India, while on my way back from Tibet, I stayed a few days in Sikkim, visiting a few prominent Buddhist yogis. Then I went to Shillong in Assam. It is one of the strongholds of Christianity in India. There I met a Garhwali sadhu, a well-known Christian mystic. This lovable old man was far beyond the influence of the material world. He taught me the Sermon of the Mount and the Book of Revelation, comparing them to the yoga system of Patanjali. He spoke many languages and took me to the Naga and Garo hills, where both Protestant and Catholic tribes lived in forest dwellings. This sadhu served as a harmonizing link between the two groups and always taught practical Christianity rather than theorizing and delivering sermons. He would say, I love Christianity, but not चर्चियनिटी. तो बहुत बड़ी बात कही है कि मुझे क्रिश्चियनिटी में उसको प्यार करता हूँ, ये जो मिशनरीज या चर्च जो भी पर्टिकुलर ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं उनसे मेरा कोई लेना देना नहीं है. कहते आई एम श्योर दिस ऑफेंडेड एटलीस्ट सम फॉलोअर्स ऑफ द चर्चेस. तो स्वामी जी कहते ऑब्वियसली जो चर्चेस के फॉलोअर्स थे उनको सुन के तो थोड़ा सा धक्का लगा होगा. ही बिलीव्ड दैट द किंगडम ऑफ गॉड इज विद इन एवरी ह्यूमन बीइंग. तो जो किंगडम ऑफ गॉड है वो हर इंसान के अंदर है. एंड दैट जीसस आफ्टर बीइंग अनॉइंटेड बिकेम क्राइस्ट. कहते he held that Christ is universal consciousness. तो Christ consciousness क्या है? वो जो एक कॉन्शियसनेस जो सबके अंदर विराजमान है वो है यूनिवर्सल कॉन्शियसनेस. एंड दैट नो वन कैन रीच द अल्टीमेट रियलिटी विदाउट रीचिंग क्राइस्ट कॉन्शियसनेस. कहते जब कोई ऐसा कोई बोलता है ना ये स्टेटमेंट कि क्राइस्ट के बगैर आप मतलब इस कॉन्शियसनेस पे नहीं पहुंच सकते, कहते दिस इज रेयरली अंडरस्टूड बाय क्रिश्चियंस. इसका मतलब क्या है? कहते इन जनरल ऑल्दो द मिस्टिक्स ऑफ क्रिश्चियनिटी अंडरस्टूड इट वेल, this sadhu removed many of my doubts regarding Christian theology. I had long before developed a love for Christ and his teachings, but had never understood the dogma that through Christ alone can one achieve salvation. My problem was resolved when it was explained in terms of the Father and the Son and the perfection that can be attained by all human beings. 2 days after meeting this great Christian sadhu, I again had some problems with the authorities. There were several political parties spreading propaganda in preparation for municipal elections in the city. My opinion was sought, and I told questioners that they should not vote for the ruling party as they thought it dishonest. तो उसके बाद जो भी कहते दो दिन जब मैं इनसे मिला ना, तो उसके बाद मुझे कुछ प्रॉब्लम होगी अथॉरिटीज के साथ, क्योंकि वो कोई इलेक्शंस का चल रहा होगा. तो कहते जब मेरे ओपिनियन मांगा गया तो मैंने बताया अभी सो एंड सो रूलिंग पार्टी नहीं ठीक है, dishonest hai. I was a stranger in the city and the police arrested me. So I guess they arrested Swamiji because they spoke the truth. They charged me with not being a supporter of the new Indian government, though as a matter of fact, I had no political motivations whatsoever. At the time, democracy in India was still very new, and the people and the authorities still had much to learn about what living in and administering democracy really means. Once again, I wondered, after I've spent so much of my time trying to avoid hurting anyone, why I do have to suffer in this way. I prayed to the Lord for help. That night, when I was asleep, तो मेरे साथ क्या हुआ? क्योंकि स्वामी जी को तो इन चीजों से कोई लेना देना नहीं, उनको सिर्फ ओपिनियन पूछा था, तो स्वामी जी ने सच बोल दिया, उस चीज के लिए उन्होंने अरेस्ट कर दिया. तो स्वामी जी कहते मैंने तो ईश्वर से प्रार्थना की कि मैंने तो किसी का बुरा किया ही नहीं, तो मैं क्यों सफर कर रहा हूँ. कहते उस रात मुझे विजन आया. I had a clear vision of Jesus Christ. He grasped my arm comfortingly and blessed me, saying, do not worry, nothing bad will happen to you. तो देखिए कैसे जीसस क्राइस्ट उनके विजन में आए, तो उन्होंने कहा चिंता मत करो, कुछ भी बुरा नहीं होगा तुम्हारे साथ. The next day, the case went to the court, and I was brought before a Christian judge. Because of my short beard, wooden sandals, long staff, and garb, people often thought that I was Christian. The judge looked at me, asked, are you Christian? I replied, no, not by birth. Of course, I loved and respected Christianity, and I did the other great and profound, as I did the other great and profound religions. He asked, तो जज ने स्वामी जी को पूछा, why are you arrested? I replied, I expressed my opinion. People asked me who they should vote for, and I advised, who you vote for depends on you. The police had fabricated a case against me. तो उन्होंने बताया अभी ये तो पुलिस ने, it is just fabrication of their mind. ये तो झूठा आरोप उन्होंने मेरे पे लगाया, झूठा केस लगाया है. कहते हैं when the judge learned the facts, he agreed and that I had been arrested unjustly. He acquitted me. तो जैसे जीसस ने उनको कहा ही था विजन में आगे कुछ बुरा नहीं होगा, तो जज ने जब, तो जज वाज कंपैशनेट, यू नो, ही वाज प्रैग्मेटिक, तो उन्होंने सारा उनका सुना, तो उसके बाद उनको छोड़ दिया. कहते आई स्टेड इन शिलोंग फॉर 4 months studying with that Christian mystic. I have never met another sadhu who could so clearly compare the philosophy of the Gita and the teachings of the Bible with the end result of much clearer understanding of both. Okay, उसके बाद स्वामी जी कहते हैं he regularly meditated and was calm, serene and fearless. After studying with him, I spent much time contemplating the Sermon on the Mount and the Book of Revelation, which for a long time remained my favorite scriptures. I have a firm conviction that the Bible contains much wisdom, though sometimes preachers who would interpret it cloud it and confuse it. ये तो बिल्कुल सही है. स्वामी जी कहते हैं कि बाइबल में बहुत बहुत विस्डम वाली बातें हैं, पर यही है ना कि उनको कई लोग या प्रीचर्स है ना मिस इंटरप्रेट करके बताते हैं, उसको कंफ्यूज कर देते हैं. कहते दिस सेज टोल्ड मी आफ्टर हैविंग मेड अ कंपैरेटिव स्टडी ऑफ ऑल द ग्रेट रिलीजन्स ऑफ द वर्ल्ड, आई फाउंड आउट दैट द फंडामेंटल ट्रूथ्स ऑफ ऑल ग्रेट रिलीजन्स आर वन एंड सेम. वो तो है ही है. तो जो फंडामेंटल टीचिंग्स है, जो ट्रूथ है ना, कोई भी रिलीजन ले लो, वो सबका एक ही होता है. कहते if this is true, कहते अगर ये सच है, then why all this hatred, jealousy and dogma? That led me to realize that even the most ancient Vedic religion, which is in fact universal, was lost, and the priestly wisdom of India was not able to convey the message of Vedic sages. Yet these priests call themselves the nose of the Vedas. स्वामी जी ने बिल्कुल ठीक कहा है. कहते अगर सब कुछ एक ही है, तो फिर इतनी नफरत, जेलसी और डोगमा क्यों है? कहते इसी चीज के लिए मैंने वो सोचा भी कि जो वैदिक रिलीजन है, जो इनका फैक्ट्स भी यूनिवर्सल है, इनके भी गुमे हुए हैं. जो प्रीस्टली विजडम और इंडिया जो इंडिया में है, वो अच्छी तरह से कन्वे नहीं की जाती है. कहते उसके बाद वो कहते हैं Shankara in his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita clearly explains that the Gita is the modified version of the Vedas, and that Lord Krishna is only a narrator. Yet the truth always existed. The founder with great messengers of the religions of the world were only narrators, but actually the sages and not the reincarnations of God are the founder of the noble truths. This itself is a proof that great reincarnations of God only modified the message given by the sages. The reincarnations of God are the messengers of the sages. They only change the baskets and the eggs are the same. When this Christian sadhu explained this to me, my eyes were open to another dimension. तो इस Christian sadhu के साथ मुलाकात करके बहुत कुछ सीखा. स्वामी जी ने उनकी आंखें खुल गई. He continued, religions play the important part in binding society as a whole. The spiritual leaders and founders of religions are accepted as authorities, but according to my analysis, the wisdom given by the sages is eternal and perfect. The great messengers and leaders of various religions are only channels of the ancient sages, worshipping the leaders and founders of religion, just like creating a dogma and cult without any solid philosophy behind it. There is no hero worship in the following the path of the sages, for their teachings are universal and all for all times. जो sages की teachings है ना, वो universal ही होती हैं. कहते when religious teachers could not impart practical knowledge to the students, this corrupted the religions of the world. They said, you should have faith in God and then dismiss the genuine quest of the soul. The doctrine of faith in the East and West is being exploited by all the preachers of the world. Modern man is confused more by the preachers than by his own problem. ये laws of spirit world में भी हमने पढ़ा था कि जो भी messages है, real messages है या वो essence है, वो misinterpret किया जाता है. जब तक यहाँ पहुंचता है, उसकी definition ही बदली होती है. कहते हैं social problems and religious problems create serious conflicts and prejudice, which become difficult for one to dispel. What is the worth of that religion which creates bondage and misery for man? उस religion का क्या फायदा जो और इंसान को बांध देता है और लाइफ में मिजरी लाता है. कहते freedom is one of the prime messages given by the sages, but it has been obstructed so much that today's religious man lives like a slave, terrified and obsessed by evils and devils. He is more concerned about sin and Satan than civilization and God. ये तो बिल्कुल सही है. कहते he's more concerned about sin and Satan than self-realization in God. The philosophy of the New Age demands complete modification of such religious concepts, but alas, there hasn't been a revolution in any of the religions so far without going through a socio-religious revolutionary process. The flower of true religion cannot bloom. Reformation and revolution are the signs and symptoms of the evolution of man. This revolution is made possible by changing the heart and practicing ahimsa in daily life. Love alone has the power to change. Such a revolution and change will prepare modern man for the next dimension of awareness, which will then unite the whole of humanity. That great Christian sage really opened my inner eye, and I started looking forward to the day to come when all the humanity will follow the religion of man by worshipping one truth and practicing love. Then there will be no place for hatred, jealousy, and other prejudices of life. My 4-month stay with this great man helped me in understanding Christianity in a better way. The vision of Christ deepened my love for his teachings, and he stays the calmest chamber of my heart as my guide and protector. देखो जितना भी चलो जो भी इस चैप्टर में समझाया है उसका जस्ट तो यही निकलता है. रिलीजन तो कुछ भी नहीं होता, जो प्यार का रिलीजन है एक ही है. जैसे लॉज ऑफ स्पिरिट वर्ल्ड में भी बोला था कि up there in the spirit world everybody worships one God. So एक ही रिलीजन है प्यार का. Religion में कुछ भी नहीं रखा. It can make people fanatics. Yes, one should respect all the religions, but one should, transcend, their thinking that religion is everything. It's all about, you should start just thinking from the spiritual level that we all are spirits. At the end of the day, same blood is running in all of us. So, I think the religion of love is the highest and the highest of love. तो जैसे हर एक ने अपनी preachings दी हुई हैं, तो वो किस तरह से लोगों को और उन chains में बांध देते हैं rather than freeing them. उसके बाद next chapter है Judaism in Yoga. स्वामी जी कहते हैं, once I was invited by the followers of Baha'ism to preside at a 3-day conference at Pune, where I met 2 Jewish rabbis of Indian origin. They discussed the Kabbalah, and I better understood the practices of Judaism after talking to them. There is a small group of Jews in India. Jews have been persecuted almost everywhere except in India. Parsis, worshippers of the divine fire, and Jews meditators on the Star of David enjoy Indian citizenship exactly as others do. The yoga practices and the practices of the Kabbalah are similar. After studying the literature, I've concluded the spiritual practices are identical in all the great religions of the world. तो जो spiritual practice है ना, वो जितने भी religion है दुनिया के same ही होती, almost identical. The ancient philosophy of Sankhya, which is the basis of yoga, and the philosophies of Kabbalah seem to have the same source. According to the Kabbalistic system, life is associated with numbers. This is an ancient Sankhya concept. Many of the teachings of the Gita are similar to Judaism. These 2 great religions, Hinduism and Judaism, are similar and are the most ancient religions in the world. The Baha'i temple and religion accepts and emphasizes this fact in its monogram and its literature. The concept of Sri Yantra, a highly and scientifically evolved ancient yoga process for enlightenment, centers on the Star of David, also known as the Anahat Chakra in yoga literature and as the Sacred Heart in the Christian practices. Sri Yantra was most probably known as the ancients of the Temple of Solomon. According to the spiritual literature of the ancients, it is a very sacred yoga process. It helps one to establish his relationships with the other beings, the universe, and his creator. I believe that yoga is a complete science of life, which is equally applicable and helpful for men, women, and children. Religions are social sciences which help to maintain culture and tradition and support the lawful structure of human society. Yoga is a universal science for self-improvement and enlightenment. All the methods of self-growth which are found in any religion are already in yoga literature. The Swamiji कहते हैं, during this conference, I found out that it's necessary for the religious and spiritual leaders of various groups from different parts of the world to meet, discuss, and share their philosophies and ideas. I'm very firm in my opinion that all great religions are one and the same, though their ways seem to be different. Diverse are the ways of enlightenment, but the goal is one and the same. तो जितने भी रिलीजन है, जो मर्जी के लो, उनके वेज तरीके अलग हो सकते हैं, पर उनका मकसद, एक डेस्टिनेशन गोल तो सेम ही है. If the spiritual leaders meet, discuss, and understand other paths, they can help the communities and thus lead them to communicate with different groups and religions of the world. Anyone who says that his religion is the only true religion is ignorant and misguides the followers of that religion. Prejudice is like a poison that kills human growth. Love is inclusive and is the foundation of all great religions. देखो, चाहे जितना भी थोड़ा सा कॉम्प्लिकेटेड तरीके से समझाया है, बात वही है कि प्यार ही है great, the greatest source of all religions. It is the greatest source. Okay, next is I belong to none but God. ये आखिरी चैप्टर हम पढ़ पाएंगे आज. स्वामी जी कहते हैं, I once went to see a sage who was living by a river. कहते मैं एक सेज को मिलने गया जो नदी के पास रहते थे. At the time, I had the foolish notion that genuine sages are found only in the Himalayas. I thought it cannot be possible for a genuine sage to live on the banks of the small river situated so close to a city. स्वामी जी कहते मेरी अपनी नोशन नहीं थी. मैंने सोचा जो genuine है ना, वो sages और स्वामीज वो हिमालयस में रहते हैं, तो मुझे लगा जो नदी के पास, शहर के पास रहता है, ये कैसे हो सकते हैं genuine. कहते but I wanted to directly experience his way of living. When I was still 4 miles from him, he sent food to me, but I was not impressed with this. I thought, this is nothing. If someone is coming to see me, I also may sense that he's on the way and prepare food for him. This is not true wisdom. When I met him, he said, you are late. I'm casting off my body tomorrow morning. तो उन्होंने स्वामी जी को क्या बोला, अभी तुम्हारे आने में देरी हो गई है, कल को मैं अपना सुबह को अपना शरीर छोड़ रहा हूँ. I asked, why do you now wait for another 12 hours and teach me something? तो स्वामी जी कहते, कम से कम 12 घंटे तो रुक जाओ, मुझे कुछ सिखा दो, तब आप चले जाना जो आपने शरीर छोड़ना. He said, no, I have no time. He had many followers of various faiths. Hindus knew him as a Swami. Muslims considered him as a follower of Islam, and Christians believed that he was a Christian. So everybody thought him like a universal, Swami. Christians वाले उसको उनको क्रिश्चियन समझते थे, मुस्लिम्स उनको मुस्लिम समझते थे, और जो हिंदूज वाले थे वो सोचते थे वो हमारे ही स्वामी. कहते the Christians intended after his death to take him to the cemetery. The Muslims were adamant they planned to take him to the graveyard, and the Hindus thought of burying him and building a memorial. तो सब सोचते थे अपने अपने रिलीजन के मुताबिक ही उनको, जैसे भी वो शरीर छोड़ेंगे तो वो करेंगे अपना जो भी होता है. कहते the next day he left his body. A doctor came and declared him dead. अगले दिन उन्होंने शरीर छोड़ दिया. डॉक्टर ने कहा, yeah, he's no more. कहते for the next several hours there was a great confusion. The people of all religions and the leaders started fighting for his body. The prestige of each group was at stake. सबकी अपनी अपनी प्रेस्टीज दाव पे लगी थी ना, तो वो सब आपस में लड़ रहे थे. कहते the district magistrate came to me and said, you were staying with him. Perhaps you know what he really was. You can help me in resolving this dispute. तो district magistrate को जैसे पता लगा कि स्वामी जी उनके साथ रहे थे, तुमने कहा तुम इस चीज को resolve कर सकते हो. I replied, I don't know anything about him. Then I thought, what type of a sage he is. तो स्वामी जी कहते किस तरह के साधु थे कि उन्होंने तो अपने आप को मतलब जो भी अपना शरीर छोड़ा, मर के तो हमारे लिए तो प्रॉब्लम उन्होंने क्रिएट कर दी, बाकियों के लिए तो प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट कर दी. He died and created a problem for me and others and did not teach me anything. I said in my mind, if he was a great sage, he should not have created such a confusion. तो स्वामी जी कहते अगर वो इतने महान थे ना, तो इतनी confusion तो ना छोड़ के जाते ना. I mean, he just made us so perplexed. Okay, this was the 4th hour after his death, but suddenly he got up and said, तो अभी जो भी है 4 घंटे ही हुए थे, कहते एकदम से उठ गए और कहने लगे, look, I have decided not to die because you're fighting. तो उन्होंने, स्वामी जी ने अपना मूड बदल दिया, शरीर छोड़ के भी वो वापस आ गए। कहते नहीं, अब मैंने सोचा है अभी नहीं, क्योंकि तुम लोग तो लड़ रहे हो, you people are just having a fight over this, so I might as well come back. The magistrate and all the people looked at him with awe. The sage said, get out of my sight, you Hindus, you Christians and Muslims, you all are foolish people. I belong to God and no one else. तो बिल्कुल ठीक है, स्वामी जी ने कहते हैं कि तुम हट जाओ, तुम अपने अपने रिलीजन को लेके इधर लड़ाइयां कर रहे हो। कहते मेरा रिलीजन क्या है, मैं सिर्फ ईश्वर का हूं और किसी का नहीं हूं। Then he looked at me and said, my son, don't worry. Now I will stay with you and teach you for 3 days, and on the 4th day I'll cast off my body quietly. तो उन्होंने स्वामी जी को कहा कि नहीं, तो क्योंकि स्वामी जी में तो इच्छा थी ना कुछ सीखने की, 3 दिन मैं तुम्हारे साथ रहूंगा और 4थे दिन फिर मैं अपना शरीर छोड़ दूंगा। I lived with him for 3 days. My stay with him was very, very enlightening. It was one of the best times of my life. He taught me many things. Many times each day he repeated the same phrase, be that which you really are and don't pretend to be what you are not. He repeated this again and again. तो बहुत बड़ा phrase जो भी उन्होंने सिखाया कि जो तुम हो ना वही रहो, pretend मत करो जो तुम नहीं हो। He repeated this again and again. After 3 days, he said, I want to get into the waters. Then he walked into the river and disappeared. When people came to look for him, I told them he had gone into the river and had never come out. They searched for his body and made all possible efforts to recover it, but it was never found. The great sages do not identify themselves with any particular religion or creed. They are above all such distinctions. They belong to the whole humanity. तो ये तो बिल्कुल सही बात है। जितने भी great sages हैं ना, they don't belong to particular religion, because उनका तो religion ही प्यार का है। और ये बहुत बहुत अच्छी सीख मिली है। देखो कोई one should not argue, one should not get into the scuffle, one should not get into these things, the topics of religion, because God's religion is is the highest of the high. और गुरु जी का भी कोई religion एक ही है, प्यार का है। तो इन चीजों में कुछ भी नहीं रखा है। और जो आखिर में जो बहुत बड़ी सीखने को मिली है, जो हो वो ही रहो ना, don't pretend what you are not. तो ऐसे ही है दुनिया में, ऐसे ही होता है कि जो वो होते हैं वो दिखाते नहीं हैं, और जो नहीं होते हैं वो दिखाते हैं। कई बार गुरुजी भी कहते थे, जो होता है वो दिखता नहीं, जो दिखता है वो होता नहीं। तो मतलब we should stay the way we are. We should not pretend what we are not, because we are not here to please anyone. We should just stay real. गुरु जी हमेशा रियल रहना ही सिखाते ने, जो ਅਸੀਂ ਅੰਦਰੋਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਉਹੀ ਬਾਹਰ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਆਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ। ਜੇ ਸਾਡੇ 'ਚ ਕਮੀਆਂ ਵੀ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ तो that also we should not hide. After all, to err is human. हमारा काम ही है, जो ईश्वर ने हमें ये चोला दिया कि हमें रोज की रोज कुछ ना कुछ सीखते जाना है। कल से आज को बेहतर, आज से कल को बेहतर। जो हम नहीं है वो हमें कभी भी प्रिटेंड नहीं करना चाहिए। So thank you Guruji for this beautiful reading today. And thank you Sangat ji, thank you Ekta ji, Shilpi ji, Guru ji, Swami Rama ji, and all the masters whom we are meeting every day through this book. Thank you Guru ji. Until tomorrow, thank you Guru ji. Thank you Sangat ji.
Thank you Auntie, and Anantam Shukrana Guru ji ka.